Hey there and welcome back to NBA 2K18's My League Mode. My name is Pete and today we complete the first round of the 2021 NBA playoffs in our NBA 2K18 My League expansion series. The Louisville Legionnaires have finished the season as the first seed in the East. With 59 wins, they have secured themselves the best win-loss record in the league, and with that they now have home court advantage against their first round opponent, the Boston Celtics. And the Celtics are actually a pretty decent opponent for us in this first round. We have met them 3 times already this season, and the Legionnaires managed to win all 3 games. So I am fairly optimistic that the Legionnaires will also be able to advance to the next round, but let's not get ahead of ourselves and first take a closer look at our opponent's roster. The star player in Boston, that is of course Kyrie Irving, who will very likely be the #1 focus for our defense. Thankfully though, we have upgraded our point guard spot defensively. Instead of 5'10" Tyler Ulis, we now have 6'6" Dante Exum go up against Irving, who should hopefully be able to keep Irving away from dominating the game. At the shooting guard, the Celtics start with Marcus Smart, who will go up against our starting shooting guard Josh Richardson. Smart is an excellent defender, so it will very likely not be that easy for Richardson to score. Still, the same thing goes the other way around, so I don't see anyone with a clear mismatch here. The same goes for the matchup of Gordon Hayward versus Rodney Hood. Both are pretty good scorers and solid defenders as well. They are about the same size and I don't think the game will be decided at this position. However, the 2 positions that I think will be crucial for us, those are the 2 that come up next. At the power forward, 79 overall Jaren Jackson will go up against our superstar Anthony Davis, and needless to say, that is a clear mismatch for AD. Rookie Ivan Bautista meanwhile has found his way into the starting lineup, and he has very quickly become a very good player. Still, the length and speed of Mohamed Bamba could be a problem for him, so I would once again see the Legionnaires with a slight advantage here. Off the bench, the Celtics' most notable player is Jason Tatum, followed by Jaylen Brown, and while those 2 are certainly great individual players, our bench unit has become a well-oiled machine over the course of the season, and I hope this allows us to exploit a few weaknesses in the Celtics' bench rotation. All in all though, I think we'll definitely focus a lot on our big men in this series, and especially Anthony Davis should be a big problem for the Celtics. And that's about it, that's the situation heading into Game 1. So without any further ado, let's jump in. Like I said, the Legionnaires have home court advantage, and since we are in the playoffs, we will go through the game quarter by quarter, and then we'll see who ends up victorious. Now, both sides started the game off scorching hot. Boston was absolutely raining down 3-pointers. They shot 71% from deep for the first quarter, and Kyrie Irving already shot his way up to 10 points. However, after a few minutes, the Celtics started to cool off a bit, while the Legionnaires kept going. As expected, Anthony Davis was feasting inside. He already had 14 points after the first quarter. The team as a whole shot a remarkable 64% from the field, and that was enough for a deserved and decisive 10-point lead. The second quarter then was a bit more competitive. 3-point shooting definitely remained Boston's strong suit. Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum combined for 15 points this quarter, but the Legionnaires did not slow down either. AD added a further 10 points this quarter. He already had the double-double secured at halftime. The shooting numbers also remained strong and once again close to the 60% mark this quarter, and the Legionnaires also had a clear advantage on the glass, which led to many second chance and fast break points. So at halftime the lead remains mostly unchanged. The Legionnaires are up by 11 and firmly in control. In quarter number 3 then, it was Bamba time. Bamba already had a solid game this far, but now exploded for 13 points this quarter. That fueled a big 18-4 run for the Legionnaires, who were about to run away with the game. But the Celtics wouldn't give up just yet. 12 points from a strong Jason Tatum kept them in the game. However, down by 13 with only 1 quarter left to play, the Celtics definitely have a tough task ahead of them. In that fourth quarter then, there was actually a brief period where the Celtics came uncomfortably close. They once again ran hot from deep and especially Gordon Hayward simply could not miss. Ultimately though, Anthony Davis put his foot down. A further 14 points in the fourth quarter were enough to seal the game, and so the Legionnaires walk away with an 8-point victory in Game 1 against the Celtics. And as you can see here in the box score, our inside-focused approach worked more or less to perfection tonight. AD without a doubt the man of the match with 38 points and 12 rebounds, but Bamba comes in close behind with an almost equally impressive stat line, finishing the game with 30 points and 12 rebounds. Richardson then didn't have the easiest time scoring against Marcus Smart, but he still shot his way up to 16 points to go along with 6 assists. Brice Johnson was valuable with 10 points and 6 rebounds off the bench, and Dante Exum barely missed a double-double with 8 points and 12 assists. For the Celtics, Irving was the dominant man in the starting lineup. He finished with 32 points, 5 rebounds and 6 assists, but the best performance in my opinion, that came from Jason Tatum, who shot 10 of 13 from the field for 28 points in only 18 minutes. Hayward then with 19 and a big shooting performance in the fourth, still not enough to get the Celtics the victory. Heading back to the playoff tree, we can now also see how the other teams are doing, and we start off in the West, where the first seed Timberwolves have also taken a 1-0 lead against the Spurs. This series between the Mavericks and Rockets has seen 2 games already, and after a blowout Rockets victory, it is currently tied at 1 game apiece, while somewhat surprising, the Trailblazers currently have a 2-0 lead over the 3rd seed Warriors. That, however, might be due to injury problems for Golden State, who are currently missing 2 important big men in Draymond Green and Dwayne Dedmon. The Suns meanwhile beat the Thunder by 20 points to take a 1-0 lead in that series, while out east we have the Nets with a 2-0 lead over the Hawks, and probably one of the most interesting matchups in this year's playoffs, Cavaliers vs Pacers, LeBron James vs Kevin Durant, and that series is also currently split evenly. Last but not least, we then have the Pistons, who have somewhat surprisingly gone up 2-0 against the Bulls, but the Pistons finished off the season very strong, and who knows, they might even be able to complete a first-round upset. For the Legionnaires, meanwhile, it is now time to jump into Game 2. Our game plan, of course, remains the same. The Celtics, on the other hand, have in fact changed things up a bit, as Jason Tatum is in fact in the starting lineup now with Gordon Hayward coming off the bench. Now, the first quarter presented us with a fairly slow start for the Legionnaires. Unlike in Game 1, Boston's interior defense worked like a charm, and especially Mo Bamba had his fair share of struggles early on. The Celtics meanwhile continued where they left off last time and hit 3-pointer after 3-pointer. Their interior offense also started to click with the rookie Ivan Bautista, who finished the first quarter with 10 points, 8 rebounds and 2 blocks. On our side, we only had AD with 8 and 5, but we also committed a few turnovers too many, and that helped Boston to a 7-point lead after the first. The first few minutes of the second quarter then were fairly unattractive basketball all around, and at least for the Celtics, things remained that way while the Legionnaires slowly improved. 9 points and 6 rebounds from AD got them back into the game. Bamba was strong defensively with 8 rebounds and 2 blocks. Andre Flanders added 6 points in quick succession, and all of that was in fact enough to reclaim a small lead at halftime. You can see here though, the Celtics definitely with improved defense, and their shooting numbers are really the only thing that's holding them down. Quarter number 3 then saw more back and forth with neither team able to gain control. Rodney Hood was strong for us this quarter with 8 points, while for the Celtics Tatum had 7 and Irving had 6. Overall, the Celtics continued their poor shooting performance, but they made up for that with good defense, and so after 3, the game still largely undecided. In the final quarter then, the Legionnaires able to build themselves a double-digit lead for the first time, but the Celtics answered almost immediately with a barrage of 3-pointers, which not only brought them back within striking distance, but actually gave them the lead. After a few more minutes of back and forth, however, the Legionnaires are back on top, holding on to a tiny 2-point lead, but with the shot clock winding down, Dante Exum hits the layup to put them up by 4. Out of the timeout then, the Celtics with one of the stupidest plays I've seen in a long time. They get the ball to Kyrie Irving, who promptly crosses back into the backcourt. That's a backcourt violation, a turnover, and the ball conveniently goes back to Louisville. With no other option but to foul, the Celtics then put Dante Exum at the line, who makes the first but misses the second, but down by 5 with time ticking down, things are not looking good for Boston. And no sense of urgency here from the Celtics. They are passing the ball around looking for the open shot. Eventually then they find Irving in the corner, who does actually hit the tough contested 3, but as the ball goes in there is less than 1 second left on the clock, and the Legionnaires are still up by 2. The Celtics do get another foul in, but Richardson hits both free throws, and with 0.2 seconds left on the clock and a 4-point differential, this game is over. Kyrie Irving hitting the long-distance prayer here is a nice touch, but it ultimately doesn't change anything. The shot went off after the buzzer, and so the Legionnaires take a 2-0 series lead. Our player of the game, once again Anthony Davis. His 28 points and 19 rebounds were huge tonight, and just like last game, Mo Bamba fills the role of second most important player with another big double-double with 19 points and 17 rebounds. Andre Flanders adds 14 off the bench, Rodney Hood has 13 with 7 rebounds, and Brice Johnson remains perfect from the field on his way to 11 points. For the Celtics, meanwhile, Irving once again leads the pack with 25 points, 5 rebounds and 7 assists, however shooting only a poor 9 of 28 from the field. Tatum, with 17 and 6, definitely showed his worth for the starting unit. Smart had himself the next horrible shooting performance with 6 of 22 for 15 points, while Ivan Bautista definitely impressed me with 14 points, 19 rebounds, 3 steals and 4 rejections. After the game, another look around the league, and we once again start out west, where the Spurs have tied up their series against the Timberwolves, and the Rockets have taken a lead over the Mavericks. Portland, meanwhile, is 1 game shy of completing the sweep, while the Thunder get themselves a 6-point victory in Phoenix to tie up the series. Out east, the Hawks get their first victory with a 3-point win over Brooklyn, while Durant and the Pacers beat the Cavaliers by 2 and now actually have the lead over the team that I still have as the top title contender. The Pistons then continue strong and now have a 3-0 lead against the Bulls, who have their backs against the walls and their next game in Detroit. The Legionnaires also have to do some traveling now, as the next 2 games of the series will take place in Boston. And the Celtics once again mix things up for Game 3, now starting at the power forward for them, Guerschon Yabusele. That means Jaren Jackson moves over to the bench, and the 6'8 Yabusele now has the task of going up against Anthony Davis. And in the first quarter, those two actually made for a fantastic matchup. Yabusele actually torched us from deep where he hit 3 of 4, while AD put up 13 points of his own. And overall, this first quarter was very competitive, the Legionnaires only with a slight edge in field goal percentage, and that is also reflected in the score, as we head into the quarter break with a tiny 1-point lead. In quarter number 2 then, the shooting numbers drifted a bit more apart. The Legionnaires slowly built themselves a lead, mostly behind Andre Flanders, who was the team's top scorer in this quarter with 11 points. Boston meanwhile remained quiet. Kyrie Irving and Jaylen Brown both only had 5 points this quarter, and their reliance on the 3-point shot actually hurt them a bit. At halftime they were shooting below 25% from deep, and so we see the Legionnaires with a well-deserved 6-point lead. Quarter number 3 then started off with bad shooting on both sides. The Legionnaires still slightly better and also strong on the boards, and behind 9 points from AD and 7 from Flanders, they were able to increase the lead to 9. Up until this point, the Legionnaires were definitely the better team, and in quarter number 4 they finally managed to run away with it. The team was focusing on what had worked so well in Game 1, and that was to get the ball inside, where Brice Johnson scored 14 points this quarter, Richardson added 13, the Legionnaires shot 70% from the field this quarter, Boston meanwhile again with an over-reliance on the 3-point shot, but only 3 of their 11 long-range attempts this quarter would fall, and so the Legionnaires outscore the Celtics by 18 points in this quarter, and behind 26 fourth-quarter points in the paint, they take the game 124-98. At the top of the scoring list, not much has changed. AD once again with a fantastic performance, 32 points and 9 rebounds, followed by Brice Johnson, who came up big in the fourth and was once again very efficient, and who finished the game with 24 points on 9 of 12 shooting. We can see our shooting guards Flanders and Richardson with 22 and 17 respectively, followed by Mo Bamba with another impressive double-double with 10 points and 16 rebounds. For the Celtics, it's also the familiar picture. Kyrie Irving leads the way with 25, but moving Yabusele into the starting lineup was definitely not a bad move, as he finishes as the second best scorer with 18 points. So the Legionnaires now with a commanding 3-0 lead, and let's see how the other teams are doing. Out west, the Timberwolves beat the Spurs by 6 to go up 2-1, while the Rockets get a 7-point victory against the Mavericks to take a 3-1 lead. The Warriors thankfully saw the return of Draymond Green in Game 4, and they promptly took that game. Still, their path to the next round is not going to be an easy one. In a narrow 5-point victory then, OKC goes up 2-1 against the Suns, while out east the Nets squeeze by the Hawks to take a commanding 3-1 lead. Taking a 3-1 lead, that is also what the Pacers do, as the reigning champions from Cleveland are now 1 game away from being eliminated in the first round. The Bulls, meanwhile, are in fact the first team to be eliminated. They are unable to win a single game against the Pistons, who themselves now move on to the Eastern Conference Semifinals and wait for their next opponent. And moving on to the next round, that is also what we try to do in this next game. Coming off of a dominant victory in Game 3, we now have our sights set on the sweep, as we now hop into Game 4 against the Celtics. And Yabusele remains the starting power forward for this one, and I think with the way he played last game, he definitely deserves that. In this game, however, he wasn't really that effective guarding AD in the first quarter. Davis managed to get himself the double-double after just 8 minutes of action, as the Legionnaires started this game off strong. Boston, however, would have an answer, and it was the usual one, 3-pointers. Kyrie Irving shot his way up to 10 first-quarter points, Smart added 6. Still, that wasn't quite enough to take the lead, as the Legionnaires march into the second quarter up by 4 points. In that second quarter then, the Celtics really found their touch. They shot 60% from the field, the Legionnaires only 36, and behind 8 points from Irving and 7 points from Tatum, the Celtics reclaimed the lead going into halftime. Anthony Davis, by the way, ice cold in the second quarter. He finished the first quarter with 11 points and 10 rebounds, and he didn't score at all and only added 1 single rebound in quarter number 2. Out of the halftime break then, things got a bit ugly in quarter number 3. For the first few minutes both teams couldn't get anything to fall. Luckily though, at that point we subbed in Brice Johnson, who went on a big scoring spree with 14 points in the third, and Boston did not really have an answer for that, and that allowed the Legionnaires to take the lead back. Still, at this point the game was far from decided. That decision would then have to wait until the final seconds of the fourth quarter. Up until this point, the fans witnessed a hard-fought back and forth. Both teams played very aggressive. The Celtics, of course, with the series on the line and nothing to lose, but as I said, the decision came only a few seconds before the final buzzer. And just like in Game 2, it is once again Dante Exum who drives to the basket and makes the layup, and with that puts the Legionnaires up by 5 with only 16 seconds left on the clock. And from that deficit, the Celtics would not be able to come back. The Legionnaires made their free throws down the stretch. Bamba here converts on the final one of the game. Louisville back up by 4 at this point, and that seals the deal as the Legionnaires take Game 4 in Boston and complete the sweep. And for a change, we have someone else as tonight's top scorer for us. Brice Johnson was absolutely phenomenal in the third quarter. When the team struggled the most, he stepped up and put them back in front, and with 27 points and 10 rebounds, he definitely contributed a lot. Still, AD had an impressive stat line as well. The shooting percentage not that great, but he remained perfect from the line, and he finished the game with a big double-double with 24 points and 16 rebounds. 4 more guys scored in double figures for us, led by Richardson and Hood with 14 each. Andre Flanders had 12 and 5 assists, and Mo Bamba also double-doubles with 11 points and 14 boards. One last honorable mention also goes to Kyrie Irving, who did his absolute best tonight, but his 40 points were not enough to save the Celtics, whose season now comes to an end. And a few more teams suffer that same fate as we take a look at who advances here. Out west, the Timberwolves beat the Spurs in 5 games, and so another first seed advances, while after being down 3-1, the Mavericks actually managed to turn things around against Houston. They take the series in 7 games and will now face Minnesota in the next round. The Warriors, on the other hand, unable to perform a comeback like that. They lose Game 5 against Portland as the Trailblazers now advance, and in the next round they will now face the Thunder, who in a bit of an upset beat the second seed Suns in 6 games. Our opponent for the next round, that will be the Atlanta Hawks, who also managed to come back from being down 3-1 and kick out the Nets to advance into the semifinals. And in the final pairing of the Eastern Conference, the upset is complete. Kevin Durant and the Indiana Pacers beat the Cavaliers in 7 games, and with that, the reigning champions make a quick first-round exit, which of course could make our way to the finals a lot easier. However, we still have a few other nuts to crack. The Atlanta Hawks are up next, and they are definitely not unbeatable either. Just like we did against the Celtics, we won all 3 regular season matchups against them, so I have a good feeling that our playoff journey will continue for a while longer. For today though, we'll make the cut right here. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, then I would be happy if you could leave a thumbs up. And of course, if you want to support the channel, then you can either subscribe if you haven't already, or you can support the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.